Hello.
Hello.
We are super excited. I feel like
to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited. I feel like this is a huge opportunity. I was telling Nick before we got on, I'm like, I feel like there's so many big people in this community. I feel so humbled that we're even doing this. It's awesome because there's so many people doing just huge things in this community that we look up to. So it's awesome that we're doing this.
Let me ask you a question before you jump in and start. Would you have thought 18 months ago or whenever you started that you would have done your first and second deal and become financially free and quit your job? Was that a reality to you when you first started?
I think it was something that was in the future one day. One day I'll get there, and I really thought it was more like 5 to 7 years away, not almost 2 years and 3 months to the day. Not that I was counting. So it did happen. And it was something that happened a lot sooner than we thought, almost like caught us by surprise. You're like, whoa, I can retire. Like, well, when? Now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to reiterate this to everybody. Nick and Jamie have done hundreds of underwritings. They've been to markets. They've called dozens of brokers. They've come to the events. They've put in a ton of work. They've worked on themselves personally. I remember being out in November of last year to the boot camp. We met out in San Diego. We flew out to San Diego. We were all there putting in the hard work. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but it's also rewarding. It's also fulfilling. And like you said, at the end of the day, 2 years, that's 27 months later. Just goes like that, and then all of a sudden you're on Closers Club with Jake and Gino, huh?
I know. It's a long strange trip.
Yes.
That is awesome.
So right. So we'll get right into it. All right, just learning how to
I used enter at one point and clicked on the screen, and it seemed to be like the up, down, left, right thing. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. This is us. This is the Hudson Blue multifamily team. So Nick, 22-year helicopter pilot. And I guess why we're here, he just retired not so long ago from that, which is awesome. I've been in medical sales for the last 10 plus years, and our employee of the month, our 10-month-old dog. Our why, just kidding.
No, it is. Our why is, Jamie was my why. When I met her, I realized that, I couldn't just do this aviation thing for the rest of my life. I had to, figure out what to do long-term to provide for a family and a woman like this. So I kind of got it together, and this is when I found you guys. Well, I'm jumping ahead now, but I'll let Jamie continue here.
His job is really dangerous. So when we met, I was like, hey, this is cool. It's cool that you go all over the world and fly helicopters, but for us to settle down, whether we choose to have kids or not, this isn't like a sustainable job to be gone, more than your home. And also just the dangers that come with his job. It's really dangerous. It's very technical. And so I was kind of like, what's next? And he was like, oh, and so real estate was what's next. And we're really happy that worked out. So how this came to be. So we purchased a property right before we joined Jake and Gino, literally within, I think, 2 months.
A month or two of joining.
So how that came to be is Nick had previously been a single family owner in San Diego. When you're in the military over the course of his lifetime, you end up being gone so much, you end up acquiring houses in different places and putting your money, there and becoming a landlord by default. And so he had one single family house left in San Diego, and it was a rental, and he kind of came to me and he's like, hey, this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I've done a lot of research. I've listened to literally hundreds of podcasts, most of which were the Jake and Gino ones at the time. And this is something, he read a lot of multifamily books, and he was like, this is something that I want to, try. And I'm like, you're going to sell your house in California?
Like, you're crazy.
Yeah. When you have a house in California, that's a big deal. And I was like, are you sure this is the greatest idea? And he gave me some books to read and podcasts and started sending me some of the Jake and Gino things. And I, listened to real people who were teachers and, even people who were lawyers and doctors that had transitioned out of that because this went so well for them, and started to open my mind. And I'm like, okay, well, this makes sense. I was about to purchase, a small house in California. That was my goal by 30. And he's like, cool. So once you put all that money in, then what? How are you going to have your money continue to build? And that was a totally new concept. I didn't grow up with that mindset. And so anyways, we transitioned very quickly, put that house on the market. It sold within like 2 days. And he started jumping on planes like that week and going to different markets and deciding where we were going to be purchasing this multifamily property. And, you know, lots and lots of networking. I think he was on like every thread on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
We, you know, had listened to a lot of podcasts, things like that, but we didn't have any formal training. So it was a very big, you know, it was a big risk, you know, to take all of that money from that one house in California and transition it into multifamily. It's a nice idea, but we didn't have any formal training or mentorship or anything to go off of. And we did get very lucky, you know. So within a few weeks, we networked the heck out of ourselves. Nick was on planes every single week in new markets, and we did identify a property in Ohio. And that's how, you know, one house became 24 units in Ohio. And that, you know, a lot of it was, I guess, luck in a sense, but a lot of it was planning and executing a plan. And thankfully it went well. But I think a lot of the reason it went well is because we jumped into Jake and Gino soon after buying it to implement those systems and plans.
And specifically when you guys bought it, it's buy right, manage right, and finance right, right, guys? I mean, the buy right, you're buying the property right, you're buying it in a good market, you're financing it right. Those management, those tools, even if you're not managing it yourself, you're getting third-party property management, that's where you grow your NOI. That manage right of the wheel of that wheelbarrow is in constant motion. And if you don't nail that, 18 months later, you're not refining all your money out and putting that money into the next deal, correct?
Exactly.
Correct. I mean, you have to, like you always say, Gino, begin with the end in mind. And that's kind of was our plan, was once we kind of figured out how do you do this thing, is like, what is this refi and roll? And you have to figure out like, what is your 2-3 year plan and 10-year plan? And we'll talk about that here in a second. Well, let's see if we can get this to go.
And also to like note, Nick was very seriously considering getting our money and his money before we even met out of California. He knew that long term for us, just the way things were going, politics aside, you know, just you have so little power as a landlord in California. And that was something he realized early on. And, you know, that's just where he was living for the last 10 plus years. And so was buying there. But, you know, over time to scale in California and buy 24 units and have the risk of 24 tenants that could squat for a year, it just wasn't something we were willing to risk. So just to kind of give reason as to why we did choose to go out of state. Obviously, your money goes a lot farther, but also just knowing our, you know, our safety. This was a lot of money to be risking, and we didn't feel comfortable continuing to stay in California and risk that in California with tenant and landlord laws the way they are.
So I want everyone to really hear that you do have a choice. And I think for so many of us on this call, maybe, you know, you live in California, but you choose to place your capital elsewhere for strategic purposes. And you know, I know we're going back to this from the beginning, but I think people sometimes get hung up and have a limiting belief that they're almost stuck to their market. And you're going to see here very soon that doesn't need to be the case. I personally, you know, for those of you who know my story, I moved from New York for, you know, similar reasons. And we've even exited Louisville, Kentucky after having 400 or 500 units there for similar reasons that did not align with our values. So I just want you to always know, as an entrepreneur, you have a choice, and don't get stuck or feel stuck in the market or just because you own something somewhere. There are options, and you're able to, you know, basically take your money elsewhere at the end of the day. And that sounds like that's what you guys did. So.
And Nick, this looks like a great deal, even just looking at it. I mean, back
great.
in 2019, people are saying, oh, the market's really hot. Somebody may be looking at these numbers and going, well, 2019, the market was really hot also. So you found this 24 unit property.
It was.
How did you find the property? How did you find the deal?
So from networking, I found someone that was in the area and through a broker. And this is kind of where, you know, we came in here. It's like we had our own capital. So this is Lake County, which is just outside of Cleveland. So it's a smaller market, and that's where the opportunity was. And we saw this was, you know, $32K a door. I mean, this is just something that you just don't even see anywhere nowadays. It's pretty banged up. And this is July 2019. Rents were even super low then, you know, looking at it, it was way low, high expenses. They had
were they? Do you remember?
What was the average rent? About $420 a month, 420, 424, something like that. was.
So you're buying it on actuals. I mean, you're buying it on actual doors.
That's like half of Gino's grocery bill right
Yeah, it's pretty.
That's one grocery store trip, the whole food.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
For a Monday, and it lasts till Thursday, bro. So come on, lucky if I get 3 or 4 days out of that. But 32 a door. I mean, you know your numbers. You know 32 a door. It makes sense. You're in a secondary or tertiary market. You're not in the primary market, so that's why the per door is a little bit cheaper. The rents are really below market. Your expenses are super high. I personally like the builds. The pictures, these are nice. They're rentable.
They look very clean, guys.
They're all duplexes. It's actually 12 duplexes what they are. So it's
2
almost
beds?
having your own. What's that?
Are they 2 beds or
they're all 1 beds and
1 beds.
about 6 studios. And the rest are 1 beds.
Which is funny too, because now when we get deals, we're like, ugh, but then we remember, it's really just dependent on where you're at. Like we have a really hard time. We have a waiting list. And very quickly after kind of turning around a little bit of the tenant base, we got a waiting list very quickly. And so I think it's very dependent on the 1 beds and our Texas property. Our 1 beds go way quicker than our 2 beds. So that's been really interesting to us in different markets.
I love that. So there's no rule of thumb, everybody. That's a golden nugget right there. We always want to paint the picture of saying, hey, 1 beds are great or 2 beds are great. Are you near a university? Do you have an elderly population? Do you have a population that doesn't have families or that has millennials? 1 bed.
What's in the market? Are there a lot of 1 beds in the market? Are there a lot of 2s? You need to know the unit makeup of that market too, because that matters.
Yes.
3 beds. I'll give you, in our market, 3 beds are very rare. People are like, I don't want 3 beds. Give me a 3 bed every day of the week. And the price per square foot on that 3 bed is going to be tremendously higher than our 2s or our 1s because there's not very many of them. So
I love that. So high expenses, long-term generational wealth. What else? What else you want to discuss on this deal that really stuck out to you?
I think it was also like you guys talk about. It's a blue collar town. Like you are still 20 minutes from downtown Cleveland. So there's a lot of manufacturing nearby. There's a lot of places that manufacture like airplane parts. There is a university in the town. It is an older population, but it was something that was like, it's a really nice community that is close to a major market.
Yeah.
So
and Nick and Jamie, we talk about the 3 pillars of real estate: market cycle, debt, and exit strategy. Did you know what your exit strategy was going into this deal? Or did you just say, I'm going to buy this and hold this long-term forever?
I just thought, hold it long. I mean, this is before I knew.
Before we got
in. This was like a month before I got you guys. Like I was just like,
dude, you're on the right track, bro. I'm telling you.
Kind of like put it somewhere and hope,
We realized we made a very good decision on as much info as we had, but after doing your guys' modules, and I would say more than anything, being on those Monday calls and going to the mixers and talking to people and just learning new things. We knew we were going to implement RUBS, but we didn't know how to execute it.
The folks out there that may not know, what's RUBS?
But it's a bill back system. So what it is, you charge tenants back for utilities. Like a lot of older places like this, 60s, 70s and prior vintage, the owners pay for all the utilities.
And just to note, this is exactly like the Jake and Gino model, mom and pop. This was a super nice older man. He was very concerned with who he was selling with, so much so that the deal almost didn't go through. And Nick and I flew out there and we went to his house. His wife had died. This was his baby. He had so much attachment to this property that his wife was gone. His dog had recently died. Like this was all he had left. And it was so apparent. He's the one who did a lot of the little, he'd go and fix a screw. He would do a lot of those things. And he had so much emotional attachment to who was going to buy it. And so he kind of went back and forth. And when we flew out there and he was like, oh, you're a young couple. Oh, you guys are you just some investors that are going to, raise the rents and kick everyone out? And we had to really let him know who we were and what our moral compass was. And we let him know, like, yes, we are going to raise the rents, but we're also going to really improve the quality. And he didn't have the finances to do some of the love and attention that this property needed. He was exhausted. He's in his 80s. He's at that kind of end of his road. And us going out there and having lunch with him really helped to kind of like smooth things over in his comfort level and wanting to sell to us.
This is the second golden nugget, everybody. They implemented the SPY technique. The SPY technique is simply seller, property, and you. Right. It's all about the other side. And Jamie, she's a closer, salesperson. She understands that. She understands that. And it's not what's in it for me. How can I alleviate the other side's concerns? Let me get on a plane. Like I said, it doesn't happen by sitting in front of a computer. You got to get down and dirty sometimes. True. Getting on that plane and that face-to-face changed everything. The dynamic changed everything. They saw you as real people. You're there solving a problem. That's what real estate's all about. If you want a motivated seller, mom and pop, you need to solve a problem. And you are solving a big problem for this person, letting him know that, hey, I'm here. I'm going to add value to this. I'm not just going to raise the rents. I'm going to implement a great plan. I'm going to clean the property up. I'm going to take care of the property. And that's really, really important. Just write that down, everybody. The SPY technique, it's seller, property, you. You're worrying about what the seller's concerns are. Then you're looking at the property itself. This property fits my model. I love the unit mix. I love the build. I love the fact that there's a lot of valuation here. It's really valuation through operation, not just renovation, because there's a lot of operational efficiencies going on in this property. You're raising the rents, you're implementing RUBS, you're cutting the expenses, and that why is you. You are the last person in this equation. You have to make sure you satisfy the seller's concerns, then the property fits what your business plan is. Then when that happens, it's game on. Let's get this deal closed.
Guys, here's the deal. The reason you're here right now, though, is because of your ability to make it happen. You could have sat, like, and I want everyone out there that's listening right now, what would you have done in that situation? Coming from California, going out to Ohio, they say, hey, deal's kind of getting wobbly. Is it going to come through? You guys got your asses on a plane and flew out there and ensured the deal closed. Ask yourself, how many of you out there, would you have done the same thing? That's the type of stuff that has enabled them to have the success that they're currently having. It's not, it's not handed to you. Nothing in this game is given to you. You have to go out there and get it. And I'm just blown away by you guys being that early in it, getting off your butts, going out there and ensuring that the deal was going to close and you're going to be successful. Now, well done on that. The high expenses, I'd love to hear about that a little bit and what you're able to do to reduce those.
Okay. We'll go.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves? I saw it and I'm like, hey, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to miss, because the outside looks nice. I mean, it looks very clean. You get the bunny there and the turtle.
Yeah, and the snail.
Well, these are also the photos now.
Yeah.
These were how they were.
Okay. So that's coming from the farmer rep there. I have a feeling. Huh?
That's right. That's right. She said read a bunny in the front, so make it look manageable. So the deal was, like we said, 1031 exchange was all our capital. So everyone wants to know, like, well, what did you put into it? $347,000. That was, I spent 18 years of my life getting that money from this one property in San Diego. So that was everything I pretty much had. I went all in.
We were really betting on ourselves. We, at that time, we were not multimillionaires. This was a very large, this was it. And this was a very scary, but necessary, risk to take. Nick is more of a risk taker. I am more of like,
calculated risk. I'd say.
I am more of like, oh, we should just save all our money. And he's like, we can't, like, that's not how you generate more wealth. And thank God, but also it's scary, when you're playing with these kind of numbers for someone where that is most of what you had at the time. So yeah, it was a lot, but I'm happy we did it, obviously.
I wrote something in the chat box. If fortune favors the bold or fortune favors the brave, you went all in. You took a calculated risk. And if you really look at your downside, the buy right portion of the framework, what's the downside? You're buying it at 32 a door. If you have to sell it or liquidate it, I mean, what's the downside? There's not a huge downside to it. You have an asset that's producing cash flow from day one. If worst comes to worst and you need to sell or liquidate it, you can get it. But when you're in that fear mode, and that's what I love about it, we all have this fear. We can't suppress the fear. We can alleviate it and we can figure out how to maneuver it. But ultimately, like you said, Nick, I want everyone on this call to think about, what is your why? His why is sitting right next to him. That why will make you really think about investing that $347,000 into the deal to create the lifestyle that you all want. So that why is truly important when you're underwriting these deals and analyzing these deals. And what, Stephen Pressfield likes to say, the resistance, that fear, it's never there. It will always creep up on you. You just have to check it at the door and say, why am I afraid of this? What's going on here? I've got a great deal. I've checked it. I've analyzed it. I've run it once. I've run it twice. What do I need to do? So, I mean, the numbers they're astounding here. 20% cash on cash, 4.58 community bank, 20-year AM, no IO. You raise NOI from 70. That's great. 40% Section 8. Great property manager. Can you go through some of the details on this deal?
Yeah, I think, like, just expand upon why you said your why is that as a helicopter pilot, you always have to manage that risk, and we always look and see, like, hey, this is a good place to land. I have to make sure I know everything's possible. I bet my life and my entire crew's life that I can get into that zone and land safely. So this one here, when I knew, I'm like, this is it, all in. Like,
he called me when he was at this property and he's like, I found it. Like, this is it. We just need to get it across the finish line. And he had been in markets, for no joke, like every single week. I think he went to 10 or 11 different markets and was just gone for like a solid 8 weeks. And I kind of thought he was nuts, but also was like, I'm one of those people where
no, you got to hold on to that. That's a driven man right there. You got a good one there.
No,
I gotta get this woman.
I believe he is someone who has like paralysis of analysis and fixates on something until he figures it out. And so I trusted him because I was like, he takes very calculated risks. And I'm like, this is crazy, but I'm along for the ride right now. And like, all right. And then when he called and he's like, I found one, this is it. Like, we need to just get it across the finish line. And, the Section 8 definitely was a little scary to me. Going in there and doing those walkthroughs, we did every walkthrough through all 24 units and seeing, it was really sad to see how some people live and seeing mattresses on the floor without sheets and just, this is some people's life. And we were providing a service and how could we make it better? And that's what Nick kept talking about when we were walking through each one. And I was like in shock just by how some people were living. He's like, yeah, but once we own this, we are going to make every single person's life here better, not just safer, not just more comfortable, but everyone here, we're going to make them more of a community. And we do. Every month we do community events. Everyone is like friends at our property. It's a smaller property and it's so awesome. And also from buying this property during Section 8, we did have during COVID Section 8 still. We've since a lot of our Section 8 has kind of petered out and we have very little Section 8 at this point. We don't really.
Well, I think what came down to is in the very beginning of it, remember like Section 8 was above what the market rent, what we're getting in rents. Mm-hmm. And then by the time we started raising the rents, Section 8 couldn't keep up with it. And also things with Section 8, they don't tell you is that a lot of times they move out and the places are pretty trash and you get no recourse on that.
And we learned that real quick.
Realized that the market started going higher than Section 8. So now pretty much we don't do Section 8. We have about 20% left and that's about it.
Yeah. But we're happy in the beginning we took it. I was very fearful and I think it was a good move at the time. But from some of these boot camps and things like that, yeah, I'm not sure we would be as excited to get a property with as much Section 8 now, just from Bill Ham and so many of your guys' guidance, but yeah, it was great in the beginning. So as far as property management, we hit a unicorn and we know that because we've since, bought 2 properties and realized that not everyone is a unicorn. And this woman works her butt off. We treat her like royalty because we now know how lucky we were to hit it right the first time. She just is on it. She has a waiting list. She goes above and beyond. There's no maintenance issues that fall through the cracks. The tenants are constantly speaking her praises.
And she used to work for HUD, so she knows the ins and outs of the inspection. So that was like a no-brainer. And those are some of the hard things with Section 8 is those inspections can stop you.
And how we found her is she actually left a large property management company and came to manage our property and another owner who has several properties in the area. And so we really hit the jackpot with her and just her systems. She's organized, she's timely, she's prompt, and she does what she says she's going to do. And, we've just realized that she operates at a very high level, which is what we expect. And in taking over 2 other properties in the last year, we do realize that that is a unicorn in the sense that not everyone operates like that. So that has been a lot of the reason that we've had so much success with this deal also is her implementation.
Nick and Jamie, do you mind if I share a quick story?
Sure, of course.
What really struck me, as you've been saying it a couple of times, Jamie, you've been saying that Nick got on a plane a couple of times. He's been working his butt off the last 8 weeks. And I challenge everybody on this call, if you're serious about that, that's what you need to do to show your significant other. Because I made that pledge to my wife 10 years ago. I said, I'm going into partnership with this guy wearing a pink sweater over there, pink sweatshirt. Is it salmon? I don't know what the hell the color is. My wife thought it was crazy, but I put in the commitment. I put in the work. I'd be working during lunchtime. I'd be doing podcasts at 4:00 on a Friday before the rush. I would do whatever I had to do to show it to my significant other that I was really committed to this. It wasn't like a hope and a prayer. Every week I had those rhythms and that's what creates success. And I think having that why obviously is important, but showing your significant other that you're putting the work and the effort into it and that they know, what, then they will come back and support you and think it's crazy that we're going to buy a 24 unit, but you can show all the hard work that you put into this deal. And you can say, hey, and then they can say, you know what, you're right. You have been putting in this work. They will be more on board to take that risk with you because they see all the effort that you've put in. So I just want to share that story.
I know we're running long, but tell the Josh Tapp story real quick with him and his wife.
So Josh Tapp is our maintenance tech. And this is another reason why I think multifamily is amazing. We bought a property with our community, with our employees, and Josh Tapp is a maintenance tech. And he came down to MM4 and he was doing a lot of work, putting up the banners, helping, all behind the scenes. And he comes up to me and he says, I just want to let you know that I put in some money into your property that we bought back in September of last year. I'm like, man, that's great. He says, my wife was kicking and screaming, why are you doing it? You're risking all the money. And in September, we refied the property. He pulled back like triple of what he put in. And she turns to him and goes, Josh, why didn't you put more money in, Josh? What's wrong with you? So you can't win. You know what I'm saying?
But she's on board now, which is great. And
now she's on board 100%.
Yeah.
But what I love about that story is sometimes we just need to take a risk. We need to share with our significant others. And how do we get them on board? Showing them all the hard work and the dedication and the commitment that you're willing to put into this endeavor. So
yes, anyone who is skeptical or needs help, guiding their significant other on this path, that this is the way, reach out to me. I will gladly talk to them, because I was definitely kind of in the background, and now I'm very much in the front row, not just supporting him, but doing it with him and blocking the units. And I understand when we see properties and we walk through, I understand how we can, raise the rents, decrease the expenses. I now know a lot of the lingo, and I've done a lot of the education, and I love it. I see this is the way, because I get time with my husband, which is something that as a helicopter pilot, you get money, but you don't get time. And, I want to spend time with him.
That's awesome.
And
I love that.
This is what the results are here too. So
the property. I really do.
It really is.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. It's 2 years of ownership. What you talked about is very small CapEx, like stuff like some drainage issues, redoing the parking lot, nothing too big, improve the resident, less Section 8 like Jamie mentioned here. So what we did, the big bang to the buck here is add 49K to the NOI. So now the NOI is 110K, and out of 6 cap, that's over 1.6 mil. So
and added value.
Yes.
Boom,
I don't know. I think you just said a 10 cap.
A 6 cap.
Six at a 6.
I was going to say, who's doing 10 caps these days?
So, looking at, so this is like Jamie and I talked about generational wealth. So keeping this long-term. So getting into agency debt. So Freddie, small balance loan, 3 years IO. I mean, oh my gosh, like amazing, 388, which is not a bad rate. It's a smaller market, and then 30-year AM. And so the kicker really is here, because
dude, compared to what you had on it, you're partying, guys. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you had a 20-year AM before, and you're what, 458 on your rate? So yeah.
So cash flows after debt service about 8K a month. So
that'll buy some groceries.
So think about that, everybody. He pulled out $680,000. He put in what, $349,000, you said? So you pulled out all your capital and then some. And Jamie's probably saying, hey, Nick, why didn't we buy 2 of these deals? Why did we only buy one?
The proof is in the bank account. That's what I said to him. I was like, all right. But no, I mean, it's awesome, because this refi has completely enabled us to be the owners we want going forward on all of the properties that we now own. And we can show up, and Nick can get on a plane tomorrow, and we can put all of our focus on this, because his hourly wage, what he was making as a military pilot, was great, but California standards great, and also where we want to be and the goals we want and the generational wealth we're building for our future children. It's going to take a lot longer than doing it through real estate. This would take a decade.
This
or
is
more.
more cash flow than my entire pension will be. Is this here in one deal. And I got this in, I did have capital built up from having this property for such a long time, but I have the cash flow more than my pension, and I pulled out this much capital.
And let's not forget.
That's life changing.
Let's not forget before we wrap up.
8K a month, build that snowball every month. I'm just saying.
And the cost segregation. You have cost segregation going on with this. You have the principal pay down. Once that IO, resets, and you're starting, so your residents are paying. So there's so many ancillary benefits, and it got you in the game, the most important thing. And it was also that mind shift. So for everybody out there, you don't have to start with a 200 unit deal. Think big, start small. Jake and I started with a 25 unit. Nick and Jamie started with a 24 unit, and it's a life-changing deal. $8,000 a month. That is unbelievable. That's a lot of groceries, like you said, Jake. That is
But
awesome.
also, before we did bigger deals, we wanted to make mistakes or learn with our own money. Like
Mhm.
we didn't feel comfortable taking on syndication and bigger deals until we had a very firm, proof of concept and
Yes.
execution. And this gave us this confidence. And before we even refied, we had family and friends interested just by monthly cash flow. And,
Mhm.
it felt good to do this with our money and not anyone else's, so that if we made mistakes, which of course that first year you're just learning, and I think we would have made way more mistakes if we didn't have you guys as support and we didn't have those events and the manage right boot camp.
The manage right's what did it. I mean, the manage right is
the buy right has helped us now buy other properties, and also the manage right, just the nuggets that you gave, and it's invaluable. So we're just so grateful for your community, because I don't know where we'd be. Yes, we bought right, but you have to execute that business plan. And that really comes from, what happens after you buy the property. And we've learned that.
I love that. So what's next? You have asset management, loan signers, capital, underwriting, you're partnering up. So you guys have got a lot of stuff. You've been able to focus on this now full time. Do you guys is there anywhere where people can get a hold of you, as far as you guys have any email?
Yeah, it's the next step. So we're looking at, people that are deal find. Go ahead, Jen.
Yes. So what's next, as far as what's next for us? Well, we have now signed on Community Brink, bridge loan, and then also agency. And then obviously raised money. We've done 2 syndications this year, one that we're the main on, and we're the lead, and then one that we raised money for. And so both of those opportunities came because of the Jake and Gino community. And what is next is we're looking for more properties. We obviously have a good amount of capital that we're very, excited to put back into real estate and make more money with. And we're looking for partners. We're looking for, like-minded people who are hopefully in this community and that are deal finders. We have proof and execution on what we've done and the day-to-day in our property, and we're excited to partner with other people who are in this community doing the same thing.
Yep.